Today's Mass, though, overshadowed by the growing priest sex abuse scandal. But so far today, Pope Benedict has not directly mentioned it. He also steered clear of the scandal during yesterday's Palm Sunday address, although there was a vague mention of the media coverage. Meantime, yesterday, New York Archbishop Timothy Dolan did not shy at all away from coming to the church's defense.
All we ask is that it be fair, and that the Catholic Church not be singled out for a horror that has cursed every culture, religion, organization, institution, school, agency, and family in the world.
NBC's Ann Thompson is in Rome this morning. You know, in fact, Timothy Dolan actually compared the accusations against the pontiff to the accusations against Christ before his crucifixion. I mean, is there a sense there in Europe that the Vatican now is blaming the messengers?
Well, there's certainly a sense here, Contessa, that the Vatican is on the defensive, back on its heels, as you will. Here in Europe, there have been accusations of child abuse in Ireland, in Italy, in Germany, and there are two cases in particular involving abusive priests that the Pope played a role in when he was cardinal, and those are the two that have really taken this scandal from something that happened at the local parish right up to the very top of the Catholic Church. Today, the Pope is celebrating the death of John Paul II, as you mentioned, and you'll remember that he also had problems with priests abusing children during his reign. And there is a growing chorus that the overall Catholic Church, the global Catholic Church, adopt the standards that the U.S. bishops did in light of the sex abuse scandal that reigned in the United States during the early part of this decade, in particular in the Archdiocese of Boston. That standard is a zero-tolerance policy for any priest who is found to have abused children. You abuse a child, you are immediately stripped of your priestly duties. And that is what more and more people are saying should be done, not just in the United States as it stands now, but throughout the Catholic Church. Contessa?
Ann Thompson, thank you for the reporting there.
Sex abuse scandal against the Roman Catholic Church. The Vatican is on the defensive. It's denying reports that when the Pope was still a cardinal and the Archbishop in Munich, Germany, he allowed a priest undergoing treatment for pedophilia back onto the job. Here now is CNN's Fred Pleitgen.
Bavaria's Catholic Church has issued a strong rebuttal and said that these reports contain no new information and also misquote some of the Bavarian church officials. The new allegations brought forward by the New York Times refer to a memo which was allegedly sent to then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger when he was the Archbishop of Munich and Freising. Now, this memo apparently told Ratzinger that a priest whom he had approved to come to Munich had in fact been put back to work even though he was undergoing therapy for molesting minors. Now, the Archdiocese of Munich and Freising says that, in fact, this was not a memo that was issued to Cardinal Ratzinger, but that, in fact, this was a regular directive which his deputy had put out and which Ratzinger would not have read at the time because he received about 700 to 1,000 such directives every year into his office, which usually were only filed away. Now, all of this comes as the Catholic Church here in Germany faces new allegations of child abuse almost every day. What the Church, however, is doing now is that it's bringing all of these cases to trial and bringing them before criminal authorities, something that has not happened before. Another thing that the Catholic Church is doing now is that it's ordering ombudsmen into a lot of its parishes to talk to victims, help these victims come forward, and try and get rid of the accusations that are still out there. Fred Pleitgen,
refusal
CNN.
to, quote, be intimidated as allegations of sexual abuse swirl around the Vatican. The Vatican admits its credibility is on the line, but that the Pope did not address the scandal directly during Palm Sunday's Mass, saying only that people shouldn't listen to, quote, petty gossip. Here to mix it up is our panel, Leo Hendry of Intermedia Partners and Republican strategist Phil Musser. Leo, as an executive, and if you look at the Pope as an executive, is that a fair comparison? Is that a good place to start?
It's a good place to start because the press and society years ago decided it was a good place to start. I mean, the Catholic Church is held out to be the largest sort of corporate institution in the world. And this is a cleaving moment. You're going to find out whether or not the Western Church and the rest of the more Roman Church is going to have a complete split. There's nothing worse in life than assaults on youth. on children. The only thing that rivals it is assaults on women. And the reaction of this pontiff, of his cardinals, you and I live here in New York. We saw our own Archbishop the other day defend the Pope. There's no defense here. This is intolerable, unacceptable behavior. And how they react to it over the next several weeks, not even months, Dylan, I think will define the Western, as I said, versus the Roman Church.
Yeah, Phil, how do you look at the Church relative to another institution that may suffer from either accusations or activities that are in breach of the law? And does a religious organization like the Vatican have an exemption beyond the law for these types of accusations that other institutions don't have?
No, I mean, I agree with Leo. I mean, clearly not in this case. I mean, this is a case where a fundamental lack of transparency is creating a drip, drip, drip environment, and we see that in our own politics. I mean, if you think about the modern kind of political scandals that we've seen escalate from what would be considered minor to major, game-changing meltdowns, at the end of the day, the Church is, with proud members who, deeply hold personal faith that's very important to them. It's a sad day for the Catholic Church, and they're, the transparency is really what is demanded in this era of technology, openness, and accountability. And so, obviously, the symbols and the messages coming out of the Vatican are very important, and oftentimes they're not representative of the broad view of diverse opinion in society, and that makes this an extra challenge over the next couple of days. So I agree with Leo.
Not just institutionally in helping to cover it up when he was a cardinal, but personally when he was an archbishop in protecting and removing to a safer parish a notorious abuser. And then the terrible, terrible story of the school for the deaf in Wisconsin, where his own clergy was beseeching him to do something, and the only person he felt compassion for was the priest who was the rapist. Now, this won't do, and I'll tell you what it means. It means that, as he's also the head of a political state, the Vatican, if he tries to travel now to any member state, say, of the European Union, he proposes to go to England in the fall, there's no reason why he has any immunity. I mean, we have prima facie evidence of a very grave crime of which he's an accomplice or an accessory.
But let me ask you this, Christopher. You mentioned England over the weekend. There were just several hundred, just a few hundred people who showed up to protest. There weren't large protests here in the United States, in Wisconsin. Is it just the beginning, or have people come to some point where they accept this?
Just the beginning. Just the beginning. It's only going to take one decent prosecutor, one serious attorney general in some country, or perhaps, wouldn't it be nice, some state of the U.S. where the legal authorities would finally admit that they've been delinquent too because they were intimidated by the Church. It's not a matter of numbers. It's a matter of law. It's a matter of law and justice.
Let me read what New York Archbishop Timothy Dolan had to say. We actually have the sound, I believe. Let's play it.
No one has been more vigorous in cleansing the Church of the effects of this sickening sin and crime than the man we now call Pope Benedict XVI.
Christopher, your reaction to that statement?
Well, if he says no one, he means he's been the best on the subject. The man's a fool. I mean, who is this cleric? No one has been more assiduous in saying than Benedict has that this is not a problem except for publicity. That the only damage that he's afraid of is damage to the Church. He doesn't care about the children, never has said a word about it, never said a word in mea culpa about his own responsibility, never called for any of these people to be removed or disciplined.
What do you think is the most, what do you think that the Pope needs to do next?
Even the devout Irish people, ask the Cardinal Archbishop about this, were appalled at the Pope's pastoral letter. He never said that anyone should resign, let alone be prosecuted.
Christopher, I got to wrap this up, but I need to ask you a question. What do you believe is mandatory now? What must happen from the Vatican, from the Pope? What must happen next?
We are fed up now with them forgiving themselves. They're too good at that. They're too easy on themselves. It's not a matter of them deciding how to discipline their own well-placed rapists and pederasts. It's a matter for the law. It's a matter of justice. Something must be done to vindicate the victims. Something must be done to punish the criminals. It's out of their hands now. It's in the secular world where morality is stronger.
Wow. All right, Christopher Hitton, always an interesting guest. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it.